Dustin DePirac, calling the Stanley Graham. Out here at Memorial Stadium. Mike's elsewhere. Mike, I think, is up in Indy for something.
Yeah, he's up in Lucas Oil because there was like a high school triple header.
Yeah.
Edgewood, Nolan Valley.
So he's enjoying himself. But Indiana, really big win today, 42-10. And, everybody will look at it and say, oh, it's a MAC team. What's it really mean? But this game, significant it's a pretty good MAC team for one thing. It favored, at least in the magazines I was reading, to win the MAC East and take a shot at Northern Illinois in the MAC
And it had
final.
a good start with 2 big wins.
Yeah, definitely. It had 34-7 over Tulsa in the first one, 41-22 I think over Kent State in the second one. Looked really good offensively, looked outstanding defensively, or has looked outstanding defensively. It was a top 10 defense last year, scoring-wise, top 6, I think, in total. Indiana,
it's a legit team from a legit league, and Indiana made them look bad.
Much just night and day difference, more or less, from what you saw a week ago from Indiana. Basically, it looked a little bit shaky early on. Obviously, Indiana had 2 fourth and goals to 1 that they failed to convert. Went for it both times, didn't get any points out of it. But then gave up a punt block, and things looked kind of ugly for a minute there.
It's more like a punt handoff almost.
Yeah, it really was one of those.
It was a very blocked punt.
It was about as blocked as you could possibly get. I mean, the guy. Basically, people ask me, did he catch the snap? Did he actually take the... Almost. I don't know that he did.
He was one of 2 guys there that could have.
Yeah, 2, 3, 4. I don't know. I mean, most of the line just came out. The numbers just weren't good for Indiana. But after that, really managed just to beat Bowling Green up and down. Defensively, we've got to talk about the defense first because, as Kevin Wilson put it, they were the worst team in the history of the universe last week. But he was kind of pointing to us for overstating that case. But they were pretty bad last week. I mean, they gave up 512 total yards of offense, 444 on the ground. This week, I mean, the total offensive numbers aren't great, 409, but they didn't give up an offensive touchdown. The only touchdown was that punt block. Held them to 1 field goal. Other than that, I think 2 missed field goals. I think 4 turnovers on downs, 2 punts, forced a fumble, forced an interception. So really, 10 stops this team had. Held to 136 on the ground, so more than 300 fewer yards than they gave up a week ago, 3.6 average. Just more or less looked just like a lot better defense all around. I mean, just looked like a totally different team than we saw last week. Says something for how good Navy is at that triple option, but also says Indiana did respond this week.
No doubt. I mean, you talked 407 yards or whatever, but it was on 87 snaps.
Right.
And I think
a lot more yards per play.
It's an average of like 4.7 a play or something. I'm just doing the math in my head. It's 4-point-something per play compared to, I think, 8.1 per play for Indiana. I looked at that. 4.7 or whatever is modest. It's a modest total per play. And a lot of those yards, frankly, were cheap at the end of the game when they're kind of moving up and down the field. And IU has a reserve defense in and whatnot. Not allowing that team to have an offensive touchdown is an achievement. It just is. And for all the grief that IU's defense took last week.
Deserved, honestly.
Right. But,
let's be frank.
They deserve kudos this week. That was a really impressive performance. And, you're right. I mean, they're not going to get a lot of credit because a lot of people just shrug their shoulders and say, well, it's a Big Ten team playing at home against a MAC team.
Right.
I think that's a pretty good MAC team. And I also think that was a pretty good performance by Indiana. I continue to be impressed with the cornerback play. Timmy Bennett and Michael Hunter, his counterpart on the other side, are making plays. I mean, they covered the deep ball about as well as you could cover it today. They jumped on routes occasionally. They broke up passes. They tackled well.
Bennett broke up only this helmet. That was
and it was a candy striped helmet, as a matter of fact. So that was a successful debut for those lids, those celebrated and or berated lids, depending on.
Either way, the kids like him. That's all that matters.
Kids love him.
Recruits like him. That's really all that matters.
Bennett's quote after the game was, "I love them habits. He gives us a little bit of swag, and I think that kind of sums it up. But in any case, really liked his play again. And the young linebackers made some plays. Nick Mangieri had a heck of a game at defensive end. Had an interception that was just a hustling interception. It was right after.
Bennett really made the play. I mean, Bennett got his hand in there and made sure that Joplin never really had control over it.
But Mangieri's hustling to be there.
Exactly. When the ball kicks up in the air, I mean, that's an incompletion otherwise, but it kicks up in the air, and Mangieri's there as a defensive end.
He's a defensive end, and the play's downfield. I mean, this was right after Mangieri made a sack.
Yeah.
So he makes a sack, and the next thing you see from him is he's like 15 yards downfield, diving to pick off an interception.
Yeah.
And so it was just a really good effort, really good focus. If Indiana gave up something, it was modest most of the time. Just so look. I mean, this looked more like the Indiana football team that I think IU fans had hoped to see this fall.
Mm.
The defense is progressing a bit. Hoping for a little incremental improvement there.
And the offense is pretty
is
outstanding.
Explosive. There were 7 plays, 30 yards or better. 3 of them were runs.
Mm-hmm.
Nate Sudfeld throwing the ball all over the yard. This looked like an Indiana team that people had kind of hoped to see, and it came. It showed at a good time because after a rough week last week, this was a very good performance. I don't care how you slice it. It was a very good performance against a legit opponent, and a very legit opponent coming in next week. Missouri out of the Southeastern Conference. Indiana needed to have a game
Still
like
feels
this.
Weird to say that, doesn't it? But go on. Yeah.
Indiana needed to have a game like this today, and they delivered.
Yeah. Let's go back on a couple points. I think as far as defense is concerned, I think Greg Heben made a really good point. Greg Heben usually makes pretty good points. But he just said, you know what, like we just felt last week we just didn't feel like we could run around and do what we do just because of what Navy does. It was so just about assignment football, and you're so worried about where you're supposed to be, what assignment you're supposed to do, and it's so much in your head that you're not playing. Yeah. And that's what it's supposed to be. I mean, that's literally Navy's objective, is to force you to be assignment sound. At some point in time, you're going to mess up, and they're going to burn you. And that's what happened to Indiana. Really, in a lot of ways, and they got chop blocked and they got cut up and everything like that. He said, you know what, we felt like this week we could get back to being us. We could just go run around and make plays, run around and just get there. And you could tell that there's just a comfort level, and Navy just does not allow you to have that.
Yeah, he said, practice was even more fun. He said, because we could let it loose. I mean, we could just play and be ourselves and fly around. And I think that showed.
Yeah. No, and they were able to get, decent quarterback pressure. Wasn't phenomenal, but it was pretty good. Mangieri, I think, has become their best defensive end. They were sort of waiting for somebody. And I don't know that he's, he's not that sort of monster, Jamie Curlew, Greg Middleton type or whatever, but he's getting you sacks. And it was at least one guy that you can kind of count on that's going to beat his guy around the edge a decent bit. Ryan Phillips even had a big sack. He hasn't necessarily been known for that, but he came around and got a big one today. I mean, that looked like that was a big-time defense.
Bobby Richardson had a nice tackle for
Richardson
loss.
had a big-time tackle for loss.
Guy, for a 2-yard loss.
They're really going for the smaller defensive tackle thing right now. Alex Todd's been out. Chris Cormier got back in. He got to play a little bit. But they actually started 2 guys who came in as ends at tackle. Richardson, I think it was actually, and Mangieri. Zach Shaw was starting at defensive end. Mangieri played a lot of end.
Yeah, it was Shaw and Phillips at end. That's right.
Yeah, but so they've done that too. Sean Heffern played inside last week. He probably played inside again this week. Mm-hmm. So they're doing a lot of that. But I guess we do at some point need to talk to the offense because it was, pretty freaking good.
It was. It wasn't great around the goal line early.
No.
But I think, look, a couple of things about that real quick. I mean, this is an offensive line right now playing without 3 starters.
Yeah.
Feeney's out for the year, and they haven't had
Eckert was out again.
Was out again. And then
Taylor's got the ankle
sprain. Missed this week. I think Eckert is closed, and maybe Taylor might be back next week too.
Yeah, it really changes a lot of things for that line.
It does. I mean, for right now, they're the backups
are okay.
We're doing the job early, especially for the short yardage pounding kind of run. After that, I mean, the offensive line seemed to solidify. The pass blocking got a little better too, I think.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, Indiana was able to find creases off tackle and around end, especially. So there was some blocking going on after that. But people should cut them a bit of slack, especially on that early, short yardage kind of stuff, because they got backups in there at 3 spots.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. It makes a difference. I mean, there was a lot of talk. I wouldn't say there was a lot of talk. Kevin Wilson talked a lot about how good his offensive line was at the beginning of the season, and he had every reason to. But, I always thought that as Feeney and Spriggs were kind of the 2 game changers there that you look at and say, those are the guys that make a difference, that, pancake guys that really win their one-on-one matchups by a lot. And Eckert and Taylor and Rarig are pretty solid. But, Rarig is not a really big guy comparatively. Rarig was a rugby player, was a walk-on. So now you're looking at Spriggs and Rarig. Those are your starters that are back. The other guys are fine, Kaminsky and Reed and whatever.
They're learning on the job.
But there's nobody, they're learning on the job, but there's nobody that's the only game changer on the line that you could look at and say, okay, that's a pro is Spriggs.
And I think they've missed Will Matty a bit
in
early
the
season.
Okay. He's
So
just not
just with calls as much as anything,
Sure.
not so much with plays. But I've seen some assignments where Indiana ends up with two guys blocking the same guy, and then the other defender comes free. I've seen stuff like that happen, and I think that's just a matter of, once again, you have a new center.
Yeah.
You're working some things out. You got some guys who haven't played before having to play. So, and I expect that to smooth out. Greg Fry's a really good offensive line coach, and so I'm not overly concerned about that. But that was part of Indiana's issue early, and I think Kevin Wilson had every right to go for it on 4th and 1 on that first drive. I mean,
Sure.
Try and stick it in. You're the Big Ten team playing at home.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. But
it's rough because you missed twice, and then you're looking at you could have had 6 points.
Twice, and I mean, shoot, it could have been 21-0 Indiana at the end of the first quarter instead of tied 7-7.
Yeah, but it could have been at least been 13 if you take 3 out of that.
Sure.
And then, you've got Ewald's automatic at that.
But the next thing you know, they get a punt block and you're tied. And
then you're down.
But another good thing for Indiana today is that didn't seem to phase them very much.
Not at all. The offense has no fear, and it has no reason to, frankly.
That's right.
And what they did, basically they were facing a BowlingGreen team that likes to play a lot of man-to-man coverage, and they took advantage of that in so many ways. Latimer and Hughes just beat him over the top, more or less. Nick Stoner, 2 massive third down catches.
Yep.
Humongous, literal game changers. I mean, you almost can't give them enough credit for it. Like, there was a 3rd and 17 and a 3rd and 13. One ended up leading to them getting stopped on the 4th and 1. But the 3rd and 17, he makes a catch, just on the sideline, just a big time play. And right after that is a Tevin Coleman 43-yard run. That puts them in the lead. And after that, Indiana just rolls. That was one of 5 straight touchdowns they had. Coleman goes for $129. Stephen Houston $155.
Best game of the year for Houston.
He showed up. I think he is sort of tired of everybody talking about how good Tevin Coleman is. Tevin Coleman is very good.
Very, really good.
But Stephen Houston would like to remind everyone that he's still kind of good at football too.
He's a legit Big Ten.
But yeah, just out physical to them too. Kofi Hughes had, the one catch that got taken away from him was a heck of a play.
It was. The
fade route that he brought down one-handed was a heck of a play.
No doubt.
So he's played really tough lately, and Cody Latimer really shows up today.
Cody had a career day, and
on a day his dad his dad played at BowlingGreen before his dad died when he was 12 of colon cancer. So this was a big for him to go out and play his dad's alma mater and have a game like that, and they'd have a hard time targeting him, and he took advantage of one-on-one coverage because no one covers Cody one-on-one because that's insane. But he just.
It was a special day for Cody. He had a career high in receiving yards, and a couple of his dad's former teammates, he said, met with him on the field, and so it was nice. It was good to see, for that kid. Yeah. Good to see him have a big day today.
Yeah, he's good too. But anyway, big win for Indiana. Falling 1-2 would have been really freaking disastrous for this team, and they come out of it 2-1. Going to Missouri next week, 8:00 game against an SEC opponent. Big time. Next 3 weeks really tell the tale, more or less. So make this quick because we're getting at 13 minutes. But Missouri, Penn State, Michigan State, none of those are unwinnable. Those are all games they can pull and could really determine what direction this thing goes.
But they're all significant challenges, and it wasn't so much how Indiana lost last week; it was how they lost, and it wasn't so much how Indiana won today; it was how
they won.
It was impressive.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys.